And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Joining us now, former state senator Nicole Lefebvre. Nicole, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us in studio this morning.
Well, thanks, Kevin, for having me on.
You know, it's been a while. I think it's been how many years since you've been here with us? You were here like one time, and we missed you.
Oh, well, that's so sweet. Yeah, I think it was maybe 2014 or something. I don't know.
That was a good year. A good year. So let's talk a little bit about the Women's March, over 3,000 people. I was looking at it, and I'm going, it seems like it's almost at the expense of men, and there are a lot of statements there. Now, you spoke at the Women's March, and you've got obviously a different perspective than I do, and we'd love to hear that here at KIDO Talk Radio.
Well, I was really honored to be invited to speak by the organizers, which actually are an amazing group of high school students. And, the march it was a really beautiful thing. It was 3,000 women, and I would say an incredibly beautiful cross-section of women from all different experiences and backgrounds. And when you say it's at the expense of men, I'd be a little curious what you mean by that.
See, I that's how I interpret that, and hopefully you can help me out to expand my horizons here, because I'm hearing about how women are marginalized, women are this, and from my perspective, we never really have a man's march. And again, I have a bias because I'm a man.
Congress is a man's march.
Well, we have more people that are running for Congress that are women. We have more women in the workplace. We have more women in the media. To me, I think men are an endangered species. That's how I view it.
An endangered species. That's lovely. I think it's pretty fair for women being half the population to look at all those places, workplace, Congress, presidency, all those things, and say, well, we're half the population. We should be half those in power and half those taking the seats and doing the work. That's the goal.
Isn't that, though, more of a question of money than gender when we talk about Congress?
Money and gender go so closely together, because when you pay women less than men to do the jobs, automatically we've got a disadvantage. And that can actually multiply in a lot of different ways. Attitudes and discrimination, people failing to promote us in jobs that we're capable of doing, people who suffer as a result of rape or abuse, really have a lot of disadvantages in life thereafter. And I can tell you that it accumulates. And we would really like to level the playing field in all those realms.
Well, how would the march, and again, you and I have a different interpretation of it. It doesn't mean that I'm right or you're wrong or what have you, being sensitive to both sides. See, I see it as, women have never had as much power as they do now. You look at anybody in the workplace, they happen to be female. And on the other hand,
what we should just call it good. It's not happening.
Again, but again, we can agree to disagree. I'm going, I don't see things as so bad. Look at what happened with Harvey Weinstein. Horrible what he did.
But that's still happening every day all over the world.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. There are a lot of people who aren't in positions to speak out. Now, Hollywood actresses are. They're in positions of power. They have money for attorneys. They have the public eye. There are lots of people who, if they spoke up, they would lose the job that they need to feed their kids.
True, but I mean, you could say that in other places too, whether it's a man or a woman, a hostile work environment.
Absolutely.
Right. So back to this march, and again, I'm looking at it, again, Nicole, you and I will agree to disagree on this. My perspective of it was, what are people marching about, and what does it really accomplish? Does raising awareness matter? And we'll just leave it at that. I mean, what does this march accomplish besides having over 3,000 people at the state capitol?
To stand there and look out over that sea of faces. And they were women from so many different backgrounds and different experiences, class and race, and different aspects of the gender spectrum, and different experiences in poverty in rural America and urban America. And to stand together and know that it's going to take all of us to change things is pretty powerful. To be united in the idea that we really do need a world where we don't have this long list of disadvantages just because we are female. it does take a lot of solidarity and a lot of coming together and trying to work through some differences and some misunderstandings, because there is a lot to working together and to understand what the experience of all different women is. And that's no easy thing, but it's really, really beautiful to see happen.
Sure, at 580-5436. Now, when I hear this, I'm hearing men are excluded, and the idea that only women can solve things. Why not have a unity march for everyone? And again, I'm truly trying to understand this.
Oh no, absolutely. We would love to have men have a march for women's liberation and women's equality. That would be beautiful if men wanted to have a march for that.
I thought that women were already liberated and equal.
Obviously not.
Well, I don't know.
We're 50% of the population. Why are we 20% of Congress?
Well, more women need to run. More women need to make money. And when we talk about wages, don't we not put in the fact that you have women that go to work, they have maternity leave, and they never come back? Doesn't that explain the discrepancy in wages as well? Because they leave the workplace, so they don't stay in careers longer.
I'm not sure what that has to do with anything.
But we're talking about wages. You're saying that men make more than women.
What does
but
that
you have a lot
to
of
do with
women
their paid, though?
Well, because they leave the workforce and they don't stay in it long enough. Like the longer you work in something, allegedly you're supposed to make more money.
There are plenty of women who have careers and maintain those careers before and after having a child. I promise.
All right.
And they are still paid less.
So what would, in a perfect world, what would need to be done? What could we do? What would be the... See, I don't believe that it was high school kids that organized this, personally. I don't.
I'll let them know. They'll be really impressed.
And they can,
Either
they're more than welcome to come on, just as you are, ma'am. I just didn't, maybe because I've watched too much Alex Jones or George Norrie or listened to some of the conspiracy shows. It's tough to believe that you have high school kids organizing this. But if they did, props to them. But back to the point of, okay, so you have a march, people are there, we're airing our grievances. What's the action step? What's the call to action?
The action step actually is for us to have conversations like this, to talk to men who are in positions of power, and make sure that there is an understanding that women deserve respect and deserve equal treatment, don't deserve harassment, don't deserve abuse, that we deserve to be equal partners in the work of the world, and that you all can help. And that is when you see people who don't respect that and don't agree with that you say something. Most of you have a better shot at changing the world for the better on some of this than we do, because
you're dividing us here.
We are talking about male and female persons at this time.
I don't see gender.
I happen to be female. You don't see gender.
I see people.
That's so beautiful.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, gender's complex. I think it's really important to understand how complex gender is. It's really, I wouldn't even say that it's an either or thing. It is really complex, and I think that's one of the things a lot of us are coming to understand. It would be lovely to have a not you and us, but we still call ourselves by pronouns, a lot of us. And so, yeah, there are some of us who are we women and some who are you male.
By the way, how about that Donald Trump?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
He pays women more than Hillary Clinton.
I don't even want to go along with how debatable that is. The man is the most tragic example of someone who does not respect women and has used his career and his power to abuse and mistreat. And so we'll just stop right there.
All right. Now, well, there were some inflammatory things said at some of these marches, right?
Like what?
Like the Planned Parenthood CEO saying white women need to do better.
Actually, here's the thing. Racism is perpetuated by people of both genders. And if
both colors, too, I would say. All colors.
Well, it depends on how you define racism. Racism tends to, in my mind, be someone who pushes discriminatory actions and attitudes in the direction that societal norms are also pushing. And so, in other words, if our society in general disadvantages, for example, people who are Latino or black, which it does because we have higher incarceration rates, arrest rates,
we have
racial profiling, lower wages.
But we have affirmative action and programs
is
designed,
teeny
designed
drop
to
in the
help
bucket.
those folks. And you could say that the majority of the population, seeing these discrepancies, have authorized discrimination against itself. I couldn't get into Harvard or Michigan or Stanford because I'm a white male.
You're picking the two possible examples where a teeny drip is going the other direction of a giant river.
Fair enough. We go to the phones. Our friend Pro Life joins us now here
Aww.
at KIDO Talk Radio. You have to put on the headphones, ma'am. Pro Life, good morning.
Good morning. It's so nice that Nicole showed up here at KIDO. But anyway,
Hello there. How are you?
I'm doing good.
That's great. Thank you so much for the strawberries.
Well, hey, you're welcome. And I hope that you run for something again. But anyway, the highest calling that a woman has is to bring life into the world, to have children. And the Women's March, that's their biggest failing, is that they're not emphasizing that. Women can't get paid for having babies, and they shouldn't. And it's the greatest and the highest calling on earth. And women are just being deceived out of that calling. And that just makes me pretty disappointed in women in general when they get hoodwinked like that and get into thinking that they have to have a career and a job or something. They can have that after their children are grown, but a nation, a race, everything depends on women being housewives, mothers, grandmothers, taking care of children and grandchildren so that those children can really amount to something and have faith in God. Now, I don't know what Nicole thinks about that, but that's my comment.
All right, Pro Life, thank you for the call.
And I think that, he and I would both agree that that's the right and perfect thing for some women and for some people and some men as well, but not for everyone. And that sometimes it's pretty important that we do both, because a lot of women are very important to not only their workplaces and the careers that they're undergoing and the way that they're changing the world, but also they help support their families, because a person can't get by on one wage anymore. We don't get the luxury of leaving one of the parents at home. And so the world is a lot more complex than just people raising children and staying at home. Nobody's making ends meet with one wage anymore. And women have the right, and I think it's beautiful when we get to use our talents, all of them, in all kinds of ways. And I think we know from the amazing accomplishments of so many women throughout history that without those talents, it would be hard to say where we'd be.
All right, much more coming up next. We'll take more of your calls. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. State Senator, that's your honorary title. You have that forever, right?
Yes, and
Okay.
my wife also gets to be a legislator for life.
You're married.
I am.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
See, we're all evolving here. Nicola Favor joining us here, Kevin Miller in the morning, talking about the Women's March, cultural issues. We'll take more of your phone calls in a minute, but we did want an update on Add the Words.
Oh, I think it's safe to say that we are all waiting anxiously on the Pro Tem of the Senate, Brent Hill, the Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke, and Governor Otter to work out a way to pass the legislation so that we can put a stop to a lot of the despair out there. Idaho has one of the highest teen suicide rates in the nation, and a huge proportion of those kids are usually ones struggling with issues of sexual orientation and gender identity. And it is very hard to grow up in a state and a nation where you can be turned away from a business, refused a job, told you can't rent an apartment just because you're gay or transgender.
Let's go back to the phones, and we go to Max in Boise on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Good morning, and good morning, Senator. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm listening to a lot of leftist drivel coming out of your mouth, and I'd like to address some of it.
Okay.
I'm trying hard to be diplomatic. Why don't we start with this long list of disadvantages you spoke of. Why don't you elucidate? I see so many advantages that women have. Unfortunately, many of these have been legislated. They have been made into law. Equal rights doesn't mean special rights. What say you, Senator?
Equal rights means equal rights. It means trying to level the
Then
playing
where's the
field.
National Organization of Men?
Well, you're welcome to have
Where are
one.
the ads that say give boys a chance to grow? This country has been so inundated with this propaganda, with this, the women are suffering, the women are trodden. There can be no such thing as racism if it's black on white. There can be no such thing as bigotry if it's female on male. You can't have it all your way, Senator. You'd like to, but you can't.
I think you'd find that, all of us have a lot of struggles in common. We are all living in an economic system that makes us struggle often against each other in ways that I don't think are all that productive. I think
We're in an economic system that gives us the opportunity to struggle.
Do you
and
like
to
your
grow.
wages? Are your wages good?
Actually, I work for myself. My wages are actually very good.
I don't like my wages.
I don't think a
I'm
lot
an
of
au-
people do.
I make my own wages. I write my books. My publishers help me sell them, and that's how and you know what? I get what I deserve.
So you think all those Americans out there who are working 60, 80 hours a week and still not making ends meet or getting what they deserve?
I think that they need a chance, but they don't need an unfair advantage. You cannot legislate talent. You cannot legislate skill. You cannot legislate drive and initiative and incentive. You could try, and I'm sure you did during your term, but it cannot be done, ma'am.
Max, great point. Thank you for the call. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. And back to the phones. We go to Lori in Boise at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Lori.
Oh, good morning, and good morning to former Senator. I wanted to address a couple of things. One is the illusion of the wage gap. It's there are instances of that, but by and large, a lot of that's been debunked because the studies show that women choose to take less time at work and to take more time off for family and so on. And so proportionally, the gap isn't that truly that big between what women are paid and men are paid. If they're doing exactly the same work for exactly the same time, then that needs to be addressed. But there's been a lot of myth propagated on that. And I wanted to ask about or comment on for the national march for women that was last year. The pro-life groups were excluded; they were uninvited. And I don't know what the case was here in Idaho, but traditionally this pro women march has turned into an anti pro-life march, and that's a concern to me because I feel like the highest calling for women is to be a mother, and I respect the right of every woman to work or not work, but I feel like a lot of times women are marginalized if they choose to stay home with their children. And for one of my big concerns is the marginalization of men that I see in society, mocking them and so on. And I think there needs to be more respect in the women's movement for men and acknowledge that their contributions, acknowledge that they are physically stronger, and sometimes we need them to take care
Lori?
of that kind of thing. And
Lori?
So I have a concern, and let me just say one more thing. One of my concerns with the women's movement is I'm a woman, I'm a professional, I have degrees, multiple degrees, but I feel like we don't need big government to oppress us and legislate everything. And I feel like the women's movement has done that today. They're demanding government impose rules on us which will centralize government and essentially abuse women. In the end, our women and children are going to be abused by big government.
All right, Lori, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Senator?
Marginalizing men. That's...
See, I agree with that. I'm very marginalized.
You feel very marginalized.
I do.
There are a lot of ways people can be marginalized. But I think to say that by and large the women's movement is an attempt to marginalize men, well, if you say that, we have a pie here and men have 3/4 of it, and women have 1/4, and we would like, half because we're half the people, then it might feel like marginalization when there's less to go around, because for a lot of people, they struggle and their wages are low and they're angry. And I know it's really hard to accept that there needs to be a level playing field when there is so much else in the world that is not level and is hard. But I think that we're all better off when we can agree that we have some common problems that we need to deal with in the world, and that being fair and letting people be compensated fairly and equally for the same work is a really important fundamental principle, and that it would be fair to legislate that workplaces, when someone is working right next to someone else, need to be held accountable if they do not pay them more, or the equal amount. Do not pay them an equal amount just because they're female.
More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. State Senator Nicole Lefevre with us. Talk about a few things. Eben Brown scheduled to join us now from Fox News Radio. We'll get to Eben in a minute, but Senator, any thoughts on your first half hour with us here today?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I think that, out there this morning in the early morning, there are people getting ready for work, and, both men and women, and going into the day, thinking about the struggles ahead, thinking about the struggles behind, and, we've all got both. But I would hope that we could all agree we want to make the world a better place for all of us, and there are a lot of ways to do that. But the Women's March, I hope, made everybody think about maybe some of the ways in which women do struggle still. And Harvey Weinstein, I hope, has brought that to the forefront for some folks. And I think everybody will be thinking twice before they use their power to try and get sexual favors from people or coerce them into that. And I think it's been a tough road, all of this, and a tough time for people on both sides addressing what has been a long-standing problem in our nation. And I hope we do better.
We will get to your reaction next. First to Eben Brown, live in Florida, out of Miami, to talk a little NASA. Eben, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us here at KIDO Talk Radio. So, the first spacewalk of 2018, how is NASA preparing for it?
Well, it happened yesterday, so it's over and done with. But yes, the two American astronauts spent a number of hours outside the International Space Station doing maintenance work. They were swapping out the hand on the big external robotic arm that's on the outside of the space station. This is part of regular maintenance to make sure they've got working parts on all the different tools that they use, and that was completed yesterday, and we now see spacewalks rather quite often from the International Space Station. Astronauts on board have a repertoire of skills and tools that they can use, and really don't need to spend a lot of time rehearsing the way we used to see with spacewalking, where people who were going to be up on a shuttle spent a year practicing and learning what it was they're going to do, being in the spacesuits and in a tank of water trying to simulate weightlessness. Now, if we find a need for astronauts to go outside and fix something or perform some maintenance, they can do it with very little prep time, and that's what we saw happen.
And finally, what about the condition of the International Space Station? Hard to believe it's been up for so many years, and, are they worried about the maintenance of it? I know, again, sooner or later, it probably has to come down, or does it?
Well, it won't have to come down for a very long time, and the primary thing behind that is deciding how much and for how long we're going to fund the operation. It's an international project, and so all the participating nations do contribute in some fashion, but the United States spends perhaps the most, that being about $100,000 a day to operate it. And when I once asked a NASA official about that, and I said exactly how long could the station keep flying. At that time, we were looking at cutting off funding at 2020, or I think even earlier. But I think we've extended funding beyond that. But the official told me, it's got to change the oil every 3,000 miles. I mean, that was an allegory, of course, but essentially that if we perform regular maintenance as directed upon the different parts of the space station, that we would get a very long and useful life out of it.
Eben, we appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it.
Eben Brown from Florida with the latest on NASA. Back to your phone calls. We go to Twin Falls for Senator Lefevre with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Joe, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having the senator on so she can showcase just how the Democratic Party has fallen on its ear. I'm the typical guy. I wanted to preface it with that because, I'm 55, raised a family, get up, go to work every day. And
it's always good
pay
to
my
self-report.
taxes.
It's always good to self-report.
Yeah, well, I want her to know that I'm the typical guy that she hates. I'm the guy that goes to school to better myself, goes to church, plays basketball, softball, cracks a few jokes about the gay guys. I other than there is no call to action for these guys. My question is specifically, what is the call to action to your agenda, Senator? What is it?
I'm almost 55, and I go to school to better myself, and I think
Yeah, you hate me. I know. You hate me.
How would I
It's
hate
great,
you?
and I laugh at your activities
Why would
and
I
your
hate
thinking. I can hear it. You're dripping with sarcasm and you're patronizing. What is your purpose? What is your agenda? You walk around it. Oh,
Just
we need
to
to
work
make everybody
hard and live in
aware, and
peace.
we need to march, and I can't bring myself to tell the world that the Democrats are the 80% of the ones
Maybe
that
just
are
not to be
pedophiling
hated
all the
myself.
women, and I've blurred the lines between right and wrong, and we just have to tell everybody to get along. Come on, Senator. What's your agenda? Tell us.
Just to live a good life and work hard and contribute to my community.
Yeah, but what does the marching do? What's the marching do for you?
Let's
How are you
us
going
all
to
do
fix
that
this?
in peace.
What's your agenda? How do you fix it?
It lets us all work hard and contribute to our
We work
communities.
hard every day without going and marching and destroying and littering the world. And, you guys leave a disaster everywhere you go. You.
All right, Joe, thank you for the call. If we were worried about getting woken up this morning, Joe's got everybody fired up here.
Okay.
Well, what are your thoughts, though? And you and I have talked about this at KIDO Talk Radio, where you have people like myself that feel that, the women's march, it's all about the women, and I feel like an antiquated dinosaur. Now, I know you looking at me and listening to me right now, that's farthest from your mind, but...
No, I think it's actually really important to discuss how it makes a person feel when other people are asking for more respect and perhaps more liberty. And I think sometimes it's easy to take it personally and say this is a comment against me. But I think it's also really, really important to look at ourselves and say, good for them.
Well, but they said a lot. Did they say a lot of bad things about the president?
Actually, no.
Well, there were no one said anything bad about the president?
We might have had some critiques. I know that I mentioned his policy at one point, but
Critiques?
it's that's so easy. Why not focus on the rest of the world? He's one man.
And we go to, anyway, Tom in
It's
Boise.
so easy.
Tom in Boise. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to bring up that my mother is Puerto Rican, and she grew up in the 60s with a lot of racism and things that she had explained to me that was going on. However, it didn't stop her. She was a single mom raising 3 boys, educated herself, used the education system itself. She eventually became a professor and the head of her linguistics department in California. And I just want to say that she never let anything hold her back. She never complained about the system. She never complained about white males or anything like that. Eventually, she remarried and married a white male. What I'd like to ask the senator is there a country out there that gives better rights to all genders, all colors, that basically does things better than the United States of America? If there is a country out there that's doing it better and giving more opportunity to the vast majority of its people, which country is that? And what would you take from them and adopt here in the United States?
First I just want to say that there are millions and millions and millions of women like your mother out there who work hard every day. They have excelled and advanced. They have endured harassment sometimes in their careers, but they've overcome that and they've lived with it. They've had to carry it with them. But they've excelled and advanced and done amazing things for their families, for their communities, for their state and nation. And I think that's a beautiful thing. However, cumulatively, some people are not able to overcome all those disadvantages that do happen when you do face harassment and rape and lower pay.
She was never harassed or raped, by the way, so.
Some are.
No, but some aren't. I'd say the majority of people aren't.
Yeah. No, but some are. And that kind of thing has a devastating impact on someone. And I'm really glad your mother wasn't.
Do you think the vast majority are raped and have to overcome disadvantages?
I think like a third of women are raped, yes.
All right, Tom, thank you for the call. We continue on. We go to Jim in Boise at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. I'm all for equal rights, equal pay. I'm in a profession that helps out with equality quite a bit. My only problem is the other side of it. Actually, a lot of times my profession is one that is more favorable for women, so I actually tend up making not necessarily less in wages, but less in gratuities. The other half of it is the difficulty with I have children from a first marriage, and in my situation, I seem to be a bit more on the oppressed side in favor of my ex-wife and the benefits that women get being the bearer of children. The things that she's getting, the things that I'm having to deal with on the other side of it, working 2 jobs. I'm remarried. My wife's working a job. I'm trying to get things in better shape from the back child support and the debt from my first marriage, that kind of thing.
Are you raising your children?
No, I wanted to, but when our divorce, we got divorced. She had lived her whole life, so her uncle was the sheriff and her cousin was the clerk. I got handed all the debt, and she got all the kids, and I got.
Well, it sounds like she had the advantage in that one. And what about the court system that they do seem to favor women in the custody cases?
Yeah, I mean, I tried. I haven't seen my kids in 6.5 years. I keep sending her thousands upon thousands of dollars for them to even to visit for Christmas or summer, and I haven't had them yet.
Well, the courts definitely have a mandate to look out for the best interest of the children, and that I'm not going to say every single time is not biased, because as many of the callers have called today and say, many people in the world perceive that it's a woman's place to raise children, and so that bias still exists in society, and there are instances where it is probably really, really a disadvantage for men who love their children. And I'm sorry if you love your children and you haven't gotten to see them. Usually, if there's some sort of court-mandated reason you can't see your children, that's different. But
well, different states. I'm in Idaho. They're in Florida. They send their money to have them come up there, and they're older now. They're old enough to take flights, that kind of thing, even by themselves. But no, it's never happened.
Jim, great point. We appreciate it. More coming up, 580-5436. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, Senator Nicole LaFavor with us. Taking your phone calls. Now, you've been going back and forth here. Do you want to get in a few words before we go back to the calls? You've been listening quite a bit.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine taking calls.
All right. We go back to the phones. We go to Jim in Star, Idaho on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Hey, what's up, Kay Millie? Thanks for the show, and Ms. LaFavor. Here's what I got to say. So, there's just people that they get things down to a science, and they get things, they get things figured out. And the one thing that you figured out since the day I first have listened to you, and this is for the former senator, is how to play the victim role. You are a professional victim. And every little subtle nuance and every detail that comes out of your mouth, you're a victim. And I'm just hoping that you don't spread this victim kind of mentality to other young ladies and other young men. Please tell me you don't have kids and don't plan on having any.
I consider myself pretty strong and capable, and maybe you should notice that part too.
No, you just have that victim role. You play it perfectly, like an Oscar award winner. I mean, how many? this isn't this. I don't mean this in the wrong way, but were you abused as a kid?
All right, Jim, thank you for the call. We're going to continue on here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We go to Pete in Mountain Home. Pete, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hi, Kevin. Senator, thank you for interesting conversation from some realms there. Let me throw this into slightly higher level. I'm going to disagree with you on what you said about men have had a bigger slice of the pie than women, and to be fair, men may lose some of it. I do not think America is organized that way. America, the size of the pie does not remain static in America. We have seen over the last 10 and 20 years with the explosion of just cell phones. None of that existed 20, 30 years ago. And my response is, if you don't like your slice of the pie, start cooking another pie somewhere. That I don't think that the total economic availability of goods and services is limited in America. I think we have been expanding it since this country started. So go out and bake another pie.
I kind of like your point in a lot of ways. There are entrepreneurs and inventors who do amazing things, but the money that goes into those businesses and the investment and angel, investment schemes and all those things do take money from somewhere. And it's, I think, really notable in our country that some of the wealthiest people just continue to get wealthier, and the rest of us tend to get less wealthy. Wages haven't climbed at all, and we are all fighting for the same smaller and smaller piece of pie.
Well, see, now they're just in what's happened in the last year with President Trump, we are seeing wages go up. We're seeing Walmart and other places, because the unemployment rate is going way down. The real unemployment rate now is going down with the companies coming back to America with the new tax law, and with the cutback in the regulations. We are seeing more small businesses start up. We're seeing more competition for workers, and overall in the whole nation, we are actually seeing the wages go up.
Pete, that's a great point. We're limited on time. I mean, Donald Trump, you would agree, is making America great again.
I think it'll be really interesting as we start to pay our taxes down the road and do the balance sheet. What we do pay more for. The fact that, a great deal of that tax cut was a tax cut on corporate America, which many of those companies have agreed is going to go to shareholders. This is a pattern we've seen repeat over and over again in the nation. And as I sat on both the Budget Committee and the Tax Committee of the Idaho State Legislature, I watched us give away giant chunks of our own tax dollars to out-of-state multinational companies in tax breaks. And those tax breaks were paid for by all you and I.
What about Chobani, though? I mean, isn't that the incentive game that you play to lure these people here, and then they employ people? And I mean, whether it's right or wrong, it's the game we play.
And if you put accountability measures into the tax bills where if they don't create the jobs they promise they create, you claw back that money and they lose their tax break, I'm all for it. There just needs to be accountability. There needs to be, you will lose your tax break if you don't create jobs, if you don't raise wages, not a blank check. Because if you give some of these companies a blank check, their bottom line is their shareholders. And unless you write accountability measures into tax reductions, you really are being irresponsible with American tax money and all of our money.
Let's get you to work safely and on time at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. And final question for Senator LaFavor is Jim in Middleton. Good morning, sir. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Great. We've only got a couple seconds, sir.
Will do. Hey, I asked the senator this question several years ago, and I'm going to ask it again. She was on another venue, and she was stating that many gays and lesbians were being evicted from their homes. They were being fired and so forth. And at the time, I had employed 55 people. And I